You know what really gets under my skin? You can walk into almost any mom-and-pop gun shop in America, tell the guy behind the counter you want a 357 Magnum lever gun, and 9 times out of 10, he's gonna point you to the same 3 rifles. It's always the Henry Big Boy, the newer Ruger-made Marlin 1894, or maybe a Rossi if he's feeling generous that day. Look, I'm not saying those are bad rifles, not at all. But let's call it what it is. The market has turned into an echo chamber. Meanwhile, there are some absolutely legit, high-performance 357 class rifles sitting in dusty pawn shop racks or buried in old forum threads that will flat out embarrass those mainstream picks. I'm talking better metallurgy, faster cycle speed, and accuracy that makes people stop calling it just a pistol caliber carbine. Today, we're breaking down 7 sleepers that the average shooter walks right past. But these things outrun and outshoot the popular options when the lead starts moving. We're getting into the mechanics, the ballistics, and the hard truth on why these underdogs might be the smartest money you ever spend. All right, this first one is gonna ruffle feathers, because technically, it's not even a lever action. It's the IMI Timber Wolf pump gun, chambered in 357 Magnum. Now listen, before the lever purists click away, you need to understand why this thing matters. This Israeli-made beast does everything a lever gun does, just a whole lot faster and with the kind of reliability a slide action tends to deliver when stress goes up and fine motor skills go down. The Timber Wolf runs a 10-round tubular magazine, and that alone gives you a serious firepower edge over most factory lever guns in this caliber. But the real secret sauce is the cycling. Because it's a pump, you can keep your cheek well locked in, stay glued to that front sight, and run the whole string without breaking position. With a lever gun, you usually get that little side-to-side wiggle while you work the action. With the Timber Wolf, it's straight back, straight forward, a simple stroke that feels natural fast. Lockup is handled by a rotary bolt design, the kind of idea you see in modern rifles, and that's a big part of why it shoots way better than people expect at 75 to 100 yards. The upside cycle rate, that's the main flex here. Once you find the rhythm, you can outrun just about any lever shooter on the line. It also has an integral scope rail on the receiver, which was honestly ahead of its time back in the early 90s. And the build quality, straight up Israeli military-grade energy, overbuilt, rugged, made to live in the dirt and keep going. Now the downside. Biggest problem is they've been out of production for decades, so you're living on the used market. And parts, like firing pins and certain springs, they're getting harder and harder to track down. Also, the trigger can feel a little mushy compared to that crisp Winchester-style sear brake. Price-wise, you're usually looking at $800 to $1,200 depending on the condition of the bore and the wood. And if you ever see one at a gun show for under $1,000, don't walk, run, get your wallet. Because while the guys with their $2,000 custom Marlins are fighting a jammed loading gate or a short stroke issue, the Timber Wolf guy already cleared the plate rack and he's moving to the next drill. It's not traditional. It won't win cowboy points. But for pure performance, this oddball is a certified king. Next up at number 6 is one that a lot of purists love to trash, right up until they actually shoot one. This is the Citadel Levtac 92. Now I know what you're thinking. Budget-friendly, tactical-styled lever gun, built off the Rossi 92 action. But if you're dismissing it because of the price, or because it doesn't have a fancy horse logo on the receiver, you're making a big mistake. This might be the most practical, bang-for-your-buck 357 you can buy right now. The Levtac 92 is based on the classic Winchester 1892 top-eject action, but it's been dragged into the 21st century, kicking and screaming. It comes with a heavy-walled 18-inch blued barrel, and it handles heat better than the skinny barrel profiles you see on a lot of old-school carbines. Where it really gets interesting is the receiver and handguard setup. From the factory, you get a modular M-lock handguard and a full-length Picatinny rail up top. Mechanically, the bolt and carrier are finished way nicer than you'd expect in this price range. And because it's a 92 action, lockup comes from 2 vertical steel lugs that slide into the bolt. That's one of the strongest pistol caliber actions ever designed, which means you can run the hottest 357 Magnum handloads and not stress about stretching the frame. This rifle is all about versatility. Red dot, scout scope, weapon light, right out of the box. No gunsmith trip required. And the threaded barrel is a major win. Throw a suppressor on there, run some heavy 38 special subsonics, and the loudest sounds are the hammer drop and steel ringing downrange. It's also surprisingly light, right around 6 pounds. Now for the negatives. The factory finish is a basic matte black, and it can pick up surface rust if you live somewhere humid and you're not keeping it oiled. Also, the lever loop can come a little sharp on the edges, and that can chew on your hand during longer range sessions. A little sanding or a paracord wrap fixes that quick. At a street price around $600 to $700, you're getting a tactical lever gun that runs at about 80% of a custom-built Marlin for roughly a third of the cash. This is a tool, not a safe queen. Throw it in the truck, drag it through brush, beat it up. It'll keep cycling. Coming in at number 5, we've got the Winchester Model 1892 short rifle. And you might be thinking, why is a Winchester on a list of guns nobody wants? Here's the truth. Most folks are chasing Marlin or Henry because they want the side-loading gate convenience, or they're buying into the Ruger hype. So they sleep on the modern production Winchester 92 because it's a top-eject design. And that's a mistake, especially for a serious shooter who cares more about mechanical perfection than tactical accessories. The modern Winchesters built by Morocco in Japan have some of the best metallurgy and machining the lever action world has ever seen. The short rifle version runs a 20-inch round barrel with a full-length magazine tube. But what really separates it is how that 1892 action feels. It's got that smooth rack and pinion kind of motion. It's compact, efficient, and it's a cleaner design than the bigger 1894. Those twin vertical locking lugs, the ones I mentioned earlier, are fitted so precisely on these guns that the lockup feels like a bank vault. Twist rate is tuned for 158 grain bullets, and if you do your part, you can stack cloverleaf groups at 50 yards. Now, unlike the old originals, many modern production examples include a tang safety. Some folks hate it, but it's rock solid, and it does make the rifle safer for younger shooters or ranch work. Balance on this gun is just right. With the 20-inch barrel, the center of gravity sits right at the loading gate, so it points fast and transitions between targets quick. Trigger pull is usually crisp out of the box, around 4 pounds with almost no creep. And yeah, it's a gorgeous rifle. Walnut furniture, deep bluing, miles ahead of what you typically see on a standard Rossi or Henry. Now, the downside of top eject, mounting an optic is a headache. You either go scout style over the barrel, or you commit to iron sights. Also, the loading gate on the 92 is famous for being stiff until it breaks in, usually around 500 rounds, or you toss in a lighter spring kit. Price is usually $1,000 to $1,200, but you're buying a forever gun. While other guys are fiddling with optics and aluminum rails, you'll be out shooting them with a rifle that feels like part of your body. This is the connoisseur's 357. At number 4, we've got one that gets unfairly lumped in with budget imports, but in reality, it's built as a purpose-driven survival tool. This is the Chiappa Alaskan Takedown, and this is where it gets interesting for folks who actually live and work in the backcountry. While everybody else is babying glossy wood stocks, this rifle is meant to get abused, soaked, banged around, stuffed into tight spaces, no drama. The headline feature is the takedown system. You're looking at a full-power 357 Magnum lever action that breaks into 2 pieces in under 30 seconds, and you don't need any tools. It uses an interrupted thread setup. You lock the bolt back, spin the magazine tube, then twist the barrel assembly 90 degrees. And just like that, the whole rifle fits in a standard backpack or a small waterproof dry bag. The barrel is a 16-inch octagon profile, which helps with heat dissipation, and it adds a little front-end weight to take the snap out of hotter 357 loads. From the factory, it comes with a Skinner-style ghost ring, rear sight, and a fiber optic front. That's a massive upgrade over the buckhorn sights most competitors still throw on there. And the finish is not stainless. It's a matte chrome-style finish. If you've ever spent a week in the rain or around salt water, you know stainless can still pit and rust. But this kind of chrome finish, It's extremely resistant. It shrugs off corrosion like it's nothing. It's also crazy light, about 5.5 pounds empty, which is a full 2 pounds lighter than a standard Henry. Now here comes the reality check. Physics is cruel. Because it's a takedown, you can get a slight zero shift if you mount an optic to the receiver, then take the gun apart and reassemble it. Also, it's Italian-made, so the price isn't gentle. Most of the time, you're looking at $1,400 to $1,600. This rifle is for the guy who treats a rifle like emergency gear, not decor. If you hunt remote river bottoms, or you want a truck gun that actually fits behind the seat of a single cab pickup, this is the one. It runs in conditions that would turn a standard lever gun into a rusted out paperweight. At number 3, we're talking about a ghost in the lever gun world, the Marlin 1894 CP. This was a short production run in the late 90s, and it comes from a time when Marlin was really experimenting with how much performance they could wring out of a short-barreled carbine. Most people see an 1894 and keep walking, but that CP suffix, that's the marker that you're looking at something special. CP stands for carbine ported. This rifle uses a 16.25-inch barrel with 8 precision-drilled ports near the muzzle, 4 on each side of the front sight. And in a pistol caliber like .357 Magnum, those ports do something wild. They basically erase muzzle flip when you're sending high-velocity 158 grain loads. Gas vents up and out, pins the muzzle down, and follow-up shots come so fast it feels more like a .22 long rifle than a Magnum. Internally, these are JM stamped rifles, meaning they were made in the original North Haven factory with the hand-fitted internals that made Marlin famous. The action is shorter and better optimized for .357 than the longer .30-30 actions, and that helps reliability, especially feeding shorter .38 special cases. Recoil control on this thing is world-class. You could argue it's the fastest shooting traditional lever action ever made for defensive or hunting use. It also has a straight grip walnut stock, so it stays slim and it slides out of a leather scabbard or a rifle rack clean and easy. Now the trade-off. Ports mean noise. If you shoot it under a covered firing line or inside an enclosed space, the concussion is noticeably louder than a non-ported barrel. And because they were only made for a few years, finding one is like hunting a needle in a haystack. Collectors have noticed too, and prices are creeping toward $1,500. The Marlin 1894 CP is the thinking man's tactical rifle. It doesn't need rails. It doesn't need plastic. It uses pure mechanical engineering to give you a real speed edge. If you ever spot one with those distinct holes in the barrel, buy it immediately. It's flat shooting, fast cycling, and the modern market has basically forgotten it exists. At number 2, we're talking about a rifle that gets brushed off as a budget clone, but if you find the right era, it's a world-class performer. I'm talking about the Pre-Safety Rossi R92. Now, the new Rossi rifles today, they're decent, but quality control can be hit or miss, and that ugly crossbolt safety sitting on top of the bolt, yeah, I'm not a fan. The older ones, specifically the Brazil-made rifles before 2015, are one of the best-kept secrets in the gun world. Those pre-safety models came out of the Rossi factory before Taurus fully blended in their newer, sometimes cost-cutting production habits. Metallurgy on those older receivers is tough. Parts fitment is tighter than it has any right to be. And because there's no redundant crossbolt safety, the action stays simpler. The firing pin geometry stays more traditional. And that often means more reliable ignition, especially with harder primers. I've seen 2012 production R92s with 20-inch stainless barrels that, after a few thousand rounds, were slicker than a JM-stamped Marlin. Carrier timing on those older guns is usually dead on, so you're not dealing with the Marlin hitch or weird feeding quirks when you swap between .38 Special and .357 Magnum. The value is unreal. You can still find clean pre-safety examples at gun shows or on arms list for about $450 to $600. This is a working man's rifle. Throw it in a truck bed, lean it on a fence post, let it get rained on. You're not crying like you scratched a museum piece. Now, Rossi customer service is famously difficult, and finding original manufacturer parts can be a headache. But the aftermarket is huge. Companies like Steve's Guns are known for turning these rifles into smooth runners with do-it-yourself spring kits and metal follower upgrades. If you see an R92 at a gun show and that bolt feels smooth and there's no safety switch, jump on it immediately. You're basically buying a $600 rifle that, after about 30 bucks in springs and an afternoon of polishing, will run like a $1,200 custom rig. And finally, at number one, this is the rifle that flat out dominates the speed and smoothness category. But a lot of modern shooters ignore it because they assume it's just cowboy stuff. This is the Uberti 1873 short rifle. The Winchester 92 and 94 get all the fame for being strong actions. But the 1873, that's the undisputed king of the toggle link world. The 1873 action is a different animal than the later Winchester designs. Instead of vertical locking lugs, it uses a toggle link system, so the bolt travels in a perfectly straight line with almost no friction. In 357 Magnum, Uberti modernized the metallurgy to handle the pressure, but they kept the mechanical soul intact. This short rifle setup features an 18-inch barrel and a simplified grip, and that combination makes it incredibly fast to move between targets. Because the carrier rides straight up and down, it's way less picky about cartridge overall length than a lot of other lever guns. You can run the shortest 38 special flat nose loads, then switch to the longest 357 Magnum rounds back to back, and the rifle just doesn't care. This is the fastest action on this list, period. There's a reason almost every world-class cowboy action shooter runs a 73. Trigger is usually match grade right out of the box. Crisp, light, short reset, and it's one of the prettiest rifles you'll ever own. Deep color case hardening on the receiver that looks like a sunset. Now the honest downside. Toggle links are not as inherently strong as the 1892 locking lug system. It is perfectly safe with factory 357 Magnum ammo, but you do not want to hot rod hand loads or run heavy buffalo bore style ammunition through it. And yes, it's a premium Italian import, so price is usually $1,200 to $1,400. The Uberti 1873 short rifle is for the shooter who wants a rifle that feels like a precision instrument. It cycles faster, it runs smoother, and in pure reliability of that action stroke, it'll hang with or beat anything Henry or Marlin is selling today. It's the ultimate sleeper because people confuse classic looks with outdated performance, and they learn real quick, the moment you outshoot them on the range. That's the full deep dive into the 7 357 Magnum sleepers the mainstream market keeps ignoring. Look, there's nothing wrong with buying a Henry or a Ruger Marlin. They're solid tools. But if you're the type of shooter who cares about mechanical soul, real performance history, and that 1 in 1,000 gun show find, then these 7 rifles are where your money should go. Whether you want the lightning-fast tactical pace of the IMI Timber Wolf, the rugged survival mindset of the Alaskan Takedown, or the glass-smooth perfection of a 73 short rifle, there's a whole world of performance living way beyond the standard gun store shelf. Don't let some guy behind the counter who's been shooting for 6 months tell you what works. Do your own research. Handle the steel yourself. Find the rifle that actually fits your mission. Whether that mission is ranch work, home defense, or just ringing steel at 100 yards. Because building a collection isn't just chasing trends. It's hunting down hidden gems that actually deliver when the trigger breaks. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever stumbled onto one of these in a pawn shop? Or do you have a different dark horse 357 that I didn't bring up today? Let's get it rolling in the comments. I read every single one. Make sure you like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below. Stay sharp.